the Hot Take Awards to look back on the year at movies and to just talk about, the winners, losers, clutter breakers.
I did a list just before the year started on my most anticipated top 6, and 5 out of 6 of them have failed.
As we were just saying, it's never been more important to be an Indian cinema fan. We're all watching everything because there is so much. But for the purposes of this conversation, we thought we'd just stick to Hindi cinema and take it from there. Also, caveat, we're talking about this before Dhurandhar comes out, which we're all insanely excited about. So high hopes. But to kick things off, I wanted to give you what my hot take was of the year overall for Hindi cinema, which is I feel like it's been a decent year for movies, but not a great year for blockbuster movies. All the big buzzy titles we were all very excited about. The less said about War 2, the better. Thama was disappointing. Chhava didn't really work for me. Even the big wedding film that you can always depend on, Sani Sanskari, which for me just did not work, to put it kindly. So would you agree with that just the blockbusters have really disappointed?
Yes, I think the big star commercial movies just didn't work, and we built it up in, I did a list just before the year started on my most anticipated top 6.
Yeah.
And 5 out of 6 of them have failed. So, but we're hopeful again, and I think we love the movie, so we tune in every weekend irrespective. But I do agree with your assessment.
So if I'm a producer, if my film makes it to your most anticipated list, I'm in trouble.
Number 1 was Kantara, though.
Okay,
so, hey,
fair enough.
No
you managed you got that one. Yeah. So I've put together a couple of categories I thought would be a fun way to sort of approach the year of good, bad, ugly, and beyond. So I'm starting with the franchise that needs to give up award.
Okay.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. I think, I believe you also have this approach with reviewing movies, that you do have an empathetic lens to what goes to making a movie. And when I do look at this actor on screen, I see the effort many times, but it's often in terribly written projects. So I think it's Bagi for me.
It's on my list.
Yes, so I just got exhausted. I don't know how it's reached to a point where it has 4 films. It was a terrible imitation of a lesser-known Tamil film.
Yeah.
And
Thought a lot of animal energy.
a lot of animal energy, a lot of blood for no reason, and an antagonist in Sanjay Dutt that just baffled me on what his motivation was in that film. And yes, by the end of it, the decibel levels kept on increasing, and I was exhausted, and I feel like they should definitely put that one to rest.
I'm going bigger, actually. I'm going straight for the jugular of the spy universe, I have to say. Because I kept thinking...
Don't say that!
No, I have to say that because I kept thinking of Thama versus War 2. And, these are two disappointing films in very, very different ways. And for me, Thama still feels like a misstep in what still feels like a really fun cinematic universe with a lot of sort of potential. With the spy universe, I really do think War 2 was truly that bad. I think it is a franchise killer. Also, this is a franchise we've seen many films of. It's not like it's starting something new. We've seen so many tigers. Big fan of Pathaan, who isn't? But yeah, I just felt like after this, does that visual that excites all of us of seeing them all come together, is there anything left that truly excites me about this? Not really. Like, I feel like if this franchise had a future, the idea of certain standalone films is fun. Like, who wouldn't get excited about a Pathaan 2? But to just keep going and pumping out what feels like multiple projects every year, I really don't know. That excitement is gone.
I do have to agree, and this comes from the biggest Hrithik Roshan fans, and
he deserves so much better.
Oh my God!
And that character deserves so much better.
Yeah, and I think they almost ruined all character development for Kabir.
Yeah.
And the movie was so underwhelming. I remember my heart being broken while watching it. And the build up to it also was, the fan in you still wanting, like, there's going to be some surprise, guys.
Yeah, what if there's something?
And nothing happened. And I feel like it falls in the template category of it just looks the same.
Yeah.
And yes, it did.
And just the idea of conviction, effort, all of these words that we feel when we watch something that's truly great, well made, fun, it all just felt so missing here. It was such a hollow film. And I really, I do think Kabir is one of the coolest modern action characters we've come up with, and there's so much promise and potential there. That's
You're bang on about it being a franchise killer, because I believe that now they're going for a complete restructuring of what the future has for the universe.
Yeah.
And that's a red flag immediately.
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
And we say this as there is still another film due this year, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
Alpha is due this year, which again, conceptually, such a cool idea. Your first sort of female-led spy action thing, but again, after War 2, I think we're all understandably cautious, scared, and fed up. Maybe is the right word.
And you can only probably make a guess dependent on like what the director's previous work was. Shiv Ravel was amazing with Railwayman.
Yeah.
But how it translates into the universe, I feel like a lot of the directors have lost themselves in this universe.
Yeah, it's
Cautiously hopeful. What is the term?
cautiously
optimistic. Yeah.
I don't even know if I'm that, but again, we would
Yeah.
love to be proved wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one was the best first half movie, which we often have,
Ooh.
which is a film where we loved the first half and the second half almost wrecked it, ruined it, or disappointed the experience. What are yours?
Why don't you go first?
I have two actually.
Okay.
Two of my favorite films, or some of the most fun I've had at the movies this year, were great first half films. One was Deva, which I seem to be the only one rooting for that
it
film. I have
seems
to say, I enjoyed that first half so much because it was just Shahid going full mass, and I had so much fun with that character and what he did with it to the point it got uncomfortable. Like, there's nothing he couldn't have done, which I was just like rooting for him, because he's a very violent, unstable, scary guy, but like I was having so much fun with him just going for it.
When the plot kicked in, however,
Yeah.
it got really silly.
Yeah.
Especially if you've seen like the Malayalam film,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I feel like they played it so safe also with how they resolved the issue.
Of course.
Also,
They made what was, correct me if I'm wrong, a fairly grounded crime drama into a full masala movie, which is an interesting idea. But yeah, I had so much fun with that first half, and I don't know, I seem to be alone in my love of Dev A.
Yeah.
What's yours?
So mine might throw you off a bit. Mine is Jat.
Interesting.
Okay.
Very interesting.
This was one of the most entertaining first halves, according to me.
Okay.
Because its hook was Sunny Deol not getting an apology.
Yeah.
And for me, how he progressively went up the ranks of the gang, just describing what transpired in the first scene, I found it to be so hilarious.
Yeah.
And in the second half, it just followed the template of a lot of commercial Telugu movies that I've seen.
Yeah.
And it just like
Curse of the second
ruined
half.
all the development. Yeah.
My other one was Metro in the know.
Oh.
I had so much fun. Just being back in a sort of Anurag Basu world was just such a sort of specific delight. Like, nobody does it the way he does, and you're wondering like, what is going on in his head. And I thought it was so well done. I was so invested in all these conflicts and just the joy, the musicality, a lot of it which I didn't expect. And then yeah, I really struggled with the second half.
Oh, damn, okay.
I still overall think it was a film that really, really worked for me. But yeah, I just thought he built up really cool conflicts. And a lot of people say love stories, there's nothing left there. But I really like these conflicts. And then, I don't know, the way they were resolved or addressed after a point lost me. But no, just for me, the first half of that film represents all of the joys of being in his work.
Yes, because the way he was transitioning to music with
Yeah.
dialogue, it was so lovely, and I think such a breath of fresh air with the slate of movies we were watching. I'm remembering the argument that happens in the second half while it's raining between Aditya, Ali Fazal, and Fatima, and being like, this isn't really working out, on how I really envisioned it. I do agree with that.
Also, the reason that arc didn't work for me is because I was rooting for the other guy in the Fatima equation, the one in Delhi, where like the guy, the married,
who's got his thing sorted.
I know, like I'm kind of feeling for that. So, and maybe that was the intention, I don't know, but yeah, that first half still, and there was something about the scenes leading up to the interval where it just had me. It had me completely.
I have one more.
If
I can
please,
add
please.
on. It was Nishanchi for me.
The first half worked for you?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because maybe it was the trickery of being introduced again to the Kashyap world, which I was slightly enamored by.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the whimsical humor and the dread that existed that I was really intrigued by. But what happened to me in the second half was probably because he was already building up for this being a cliffhanger for part 2 of it transitioning into a romance from scratch again. which I got confused about because I had no idea that there's going to be a part 2.
Yeah.
And
None
I
of
was
us did.
so bummed out by
Yeah.
the end of it, thinking that all of this for more.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really broke my heart.
I wish I felt the same. Nishanji gave me such a massive existential crisis because I swear to you, I sat there for 3 hours and I felt nothing. I didn't feel for
Oh, wow,
anyone or
okay.
anything. And I was truly vibrating in my seat saying, there's something wrong with me.
Mm.
Like, what is it that I'm not able to connect with any of this? The next one is a category you, I would hope, enjoy, is the Matlab Kuch Bhi, What Were They Smoking
Oh,
award.
God.
This could be for a moment, a film, a plot point. What comes
Okay.
to mind?
I have several I've written down, but I'll just share one or two of
Okay.
them. Okay, for me, another franchise that I've slightly given up on is Houseful. Saundarya Sharma's character in the film, I think she features in like 3 or 4 scenes in that movie, and
Yeah.
all of them are with the purpose of capturing her in
Yeah.
a particular camera angles, and the ensemble cast reacting to it. Found it really, really uncomfortable, and with this is one thing that I spoke about before Thama released on the marketing run that they were doing for the film.
Yeah.
I felt like the purpose of the lore was not even there, and we were just getting one music video after the other. So I think it's a more industry problem, probably.
Yeah.
This reminds me of even a movie like Param Sundari,
Yeah.
and you have like a token Keralite nurse who's like
Yeah.
harassing Siddharth for 2 scenes in that movie. And I sometimes get confused on like, who do you think this is catering to? Who is laughing because of this?
That's a great.
And you know,
yeah.
I often see these movies sometimes in like single screens in Noida,
Yeah.
and no one's really, having a good time. So I wonder what the purpose is. My biggest Matlab Kuch Bhi moment, however, was Ibrahim in Nadania showing his abs after a debating contest. That was like peak for me, and he represented Greater Noida, called it Greatest Noida. I'm not too proud of that, but that was my Matlab Kuch Bhi moment.
Not easy being the lead of 2 of the worst films of the year.
Oh God.
Not a great track record.
Yeah.
No, so I think Param Sundari is a great one. I think just the making a film on such stupid stereotypes.
Oh my God.
And like and you can feel like, is this just reverse engineered from Twitter? Cinephiles are going crazy for Malayalam cinema. Let's give them something. Like, I don't know what the intention
It
was.
is bang on, Suchin.
Yeah.
Your assessment is bang on.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe the makers felt like they're saying something really nuanced by bifurcating with the industries and saying the biggest names from there.
We will show Malayalam cinema how it's done.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come to our next one. We'll go a bit positive this time. The gem we didn't see coming that gave us hope for Hindi
Okay.
cinema.
Okay. So this again might be a slightly unpopular opinion. I really loved The Diplomat with John.
Interesting.
I thought it was edited really in a slick fashion.
Yeah.
I thought that the screenplay didn't have many dips.
Yeah.
I do not think it was sensationalized in the language in which it communicated. I thought even the acts of abuse were not done in a manner in which it seems provocative.
Interesting.
With what I equate to what is I term as bhadkau cinema with like Kerala Story.
Yeah.
And I thought John was tailor-made for that role
Yeah.
because he is mostly stoic, to the point with the job at hand,
Yeah.
and is never really emotional about anything throughout the film.
Yeah.
I thought Sadia Khatib was amazing. And I really felt like from what seems to be his obsession, which is geopolitics, it was from his slate of films, probably after Madras Cafe, I felt like the most tight film that he's made.
Yeah.
So I really was surprised by it.
I've had that issue with him for a while. The whole idea of will the real John Abraham please stand up? Because he always gives you this sense of these are the films I want to make. And then he makes this. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then you always wonder, well, when you like one of these, Madras Cafe is a great example, and he seems so, and then, there was that whole era of him, the producer, and him like, okay, now I finally get to tell the stories I want to tell, and we're definitely paying attention. And yeah, I think this was a good reminder of that. That's an interesting one. Mine was Dhadak 2, which
Ooh, okay.
I realize maybe not everyone is as big a fan of as I am. We've talked about how the title is just embarrassing, to sort of position a film like that, you're just shooting it in the foot. It is just deeply sort of tragic for the filmmakers as well. But this film really worked for me. I did not I did not expect to feel for it this much. It obviously it's also very sad how the remake tag puts so many people off, and this is a film where you really want to tell them that it's well worth your time.
Yeah.
It's made with such sincerity and honesty. It's not sort of just a hollow remake in that sense. But I felt the rage so much. I really felt that marriage of sort of clearly an agenda to talk about a very specific important thing, but to really marry it with sort of masala cinema elements. And it made me sort of feel Siddhant Chaturvedi, the performer, after a long time.
He was lovely.
And the way I felt the rage, and I love the idea that this is not just, it is a very angry film, but it's also a film about rage. And it really had me completely. It really worked. So I guess along the same lines, a film that deserved more love.
Deserve more love. Okay. Actually, we just discussed it, so this might be a moot point. I said Dhadak 2.
Yeah.
I felt like the marketing really did a disservice to the quality of that movie. And, people... I've noticed this, Suchin, with any movie that releases theatrically, if it already has a baggage of negativity because of name association, cast association, it already, it just becomes dead on arrival.
Yeah.
And I think...
And there's a lot of rage around it from people who clearly still haven't even watched the film.
Yeah. And I felt like the performances were so earnest, and it had its own identity, as you said. I do think it deserved a lot more. And I thought, at one point of time, I was discussing this with my father about 8 or 10 years ago when Argo had released.
Yeah.
And he had said that, what we had noticed as people who would go every weekend to the theaters, that when the Oscar buzz would happen, there would be a push in India also to watch it in the theater. And they would re-release the movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, with Homebound, that didn't happen with the buzz of the Oscars.
Yeah.
I almost felt like so sad that even on opening weekend, I was in an empty theater. So I felt like that about Homebound as well.
Yeah, it deserved
that
more
I
love.
hope that more people saw it in the theater. But it didn't really happen.
Speaking of marketing, you've mentioned it twice. Now I know it's something you're very passionate about. I also had the biggest marketing wonder/blunder, where you felt that, that you felt that they could have done a lot more for the film, or the film that really could teach a lot of lessons when it comes to promotion.
So I think it's so fresh that I have to speak. I think Thama was a big blunder in my eyes from a
The
marketing
12
perspective.
item songs didn't work for you?
Oh my God. And you wonder, I think we were just speaking about this off camera, where when I see the way the cast was wearing costumes in the first three, there is a point where most of them are in salwar kameezes or like sweatshirts and track pants. It's so reflective of the place that they're from that I felt like as the movies have become progressively more popular, now it's an IP that has an expectation from mass India, and a lot of people were saying this is the problem that Hindi cinema and its pressure has, is that they have to cater to everyone.
Yeah.
So when it's the underdog, it stays true rooted to its story, but when it has to cater to everyone, it almost becomes like a generic music video.
Yeah.
And that really bummed me out because, as you said, the idea of, Betals really going after British blood is a very interesting concept, and you can go have some wacky routes that you take with it. But I felt like the lore was secondary.
Yeah.
A lot of the music videos were primary focus, and I think that was a red flag already.
We've actually gone a weirdly...
Yeah,
long
sorry.
No, I was just going to say we've talked for the longest time without mentioning Sayara once, which is interesting.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of marketing, so many people talk about how that is a case study in marketing, right? And I want to get your perspective because I know there's something you think about a lot. The whole idea that they didn't give interviews before, it was the music that spoke for the film, which I think was great. But could I not argue, and it's clearly worked, and I'm a big fan of that film, and you're so glad that film found that. It's not even there's something about Hindi cinema going back to what it does well, not trying to ape something else. But if another film wanted to be like a young adult romance and, didn't do interviews with stuff, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to understand, can those learnings be replicated for another film where if it doesn't have a big banner, is anyone going to care? What do you take away from that?
So the assessment is that anything with pathos, dard, dukh, especially males lamenting, not getting over a breakup, is the in thing right now.
Okay.
Case study is Ek Deewane Ki Deewaniyat.
Yeah.
Personally, it's a terrible film.
Yeah.
Its title track has over 100 million views. which is the male hero lamenting, crying, pining that this
Stalking.
girl.
Yeah.
That is the entire film.
Yeah.
But and the crazy part is, Suchin, it's stalking with morals.
Yeah.
It's another crazy balance that we can speak about later, because I think you have one category. But from what producers are noticing, what people are noticing with audience reactions,
Yeah.
is that Heartbreak, to extreme degrees, which apparently is being attempted with Dhanush's film with Kriti Sanon as
Yeah.
well, called Tere Ishq Mein, it's to rile reactions which are essentially personal stories of their heartbreak.
Of men.
Of men,
Yeah.
specifically of grown men who can't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
And that's apparently doing extremely well. My issue is they club that with Sayyara. Sayyara's not that story at all.
isn't, yeah.
So, everyone has this perception that Sayyara is causing this wave of toxic lovers.
Yeah.
But I think there's a misrepresentation just because it has the same pathos in its musical numbers.
Yeah.
But apparently this is going to carry on for a few months, Suchin, where Dukh, Dard, Peeda
For a
is
few
going
years.
to be...
Yeah.
the
Because
next
after
thing.
the success of Sayara, the amount of people just blindly green lighting. And you're so right, because that's one of the most interesting aspects of that film, where it isn't that sort of alcohol sort of spiral. There isn't that toxicity. Which is probably what many people might expect from something
Yeah.
like that. The next one I had was a supporting character or actor that stole the show, and I'm guessing for that one both of us have the same person in mind, but you go ahead and name him.
Yeah, Raghu Jayal in Bads of Bollywood
Yeah.
was a riot.
Hell yes.
Absolutely hilarious. I feel like a lot of, from what I've interacted with Raghav and spoken to him about what he feels about films and what he wants to do all kinds of roles. But that character was him.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And he was so entertaining. I mean, all the memes are there for that Imran Hashmi moment,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that comes from a guy who is a movie fan, a Bollywood true fan, and who loves to be in the movies, I think.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. For me, I think of like what long form storytelling, which gives so much focus to character, it lets the, in quotes, best friend, because there's a long history of the best friend on screen, which is always better than the star, and he's sort of diminished. And I'm not saying better than anyone here, but I felt that with Fuzzy, right? So Bhuvan Arora, who's sort of this, call it second fiddle, whatever word you want to use, the way he shines, because long form gives you that opportunity. And Raghav is a great example of that. The way he just completely stole those scenes, and then you feel so much for him. And it's such a lovable performance and character.
And Suchin, that kind of like, from what I've seen, at least what seems like ad-libs in scenes sometimes, it can go a little haywire because Raghav will carry on until you say cut. But it was just on point. It was, and I loved the interactions he had with those gangsters. That was a consistent feature throughout the show. I don't know what really happened to the show in the last 2-3 episodes. I somewhat had lost interest when it took itself seriously with the love story, but it was such a wild watch.
Also, to Raghav's credit, I was thinking, because this is a show that works, I think, as a comedy, as a satire, it's an angry show, we're all looking for like Easter eggs. It's pure fun, right? The only aspect of the show where I felt any true emotional investment, where you actually moved in any sort of way, is the friendship story. Everything else is fine, and it's cool and it works, but the only part that actually made me feel anything is that friendship story, and I think a lot of that is to do with Raghav and his performance. That is the, in quotes, love story of the show. The other one I wanted to do, because I know this is something you're very passionate about, is choreography. So do you think it's been a good year for that, or what are your favorite examples or things that you thought were laughable?
So sadly what's happened is that most of the dance sequences I believe are essentially marketing tools for the film, and it's a promotion prior to its release. Now what's happened is that they've realized that essentially it's a perception game of wanting to make sure that the choreography doesn't really fit in the world that they're creating, but gets viral on social media or becomes a trend. So what's happened in the process is that a lot of the hook steps have taken the form of Zumba. Okay. So you'll see a lot of repetition, combinations that can be easily replicated. and can be performed in the 9:16 ratio.
So it's all for virality.
All for virality. So even if you'll see Hrithik Roshan dance in War 2,
Yeah.
a lot of the hook steps are in one position.
Yeah.
You'll see this with Sunny Sanskari's choreography as well.
Such a disappointing soundtrack. And even the choreo and all
And
of
you'll
it.
see the choreography where they do Panwadi,
Yeah.
it's in one position
Yeah.
with just the change of expressions and their upper body moving.
Yeah.
So it's catered towards social media.
A star who needs to introspect and go back to the drawing board.
Oh, this hits hard. I say this with a lot of love, but I think it's Hrithik.
Okay.
And I feel like it is. I immediately go back to Anupama Chopra's interview with him post-fighter. And I feel like there is this intellectual processing of failure, which is far too deep and nuanced.
Okay.
And sometimes I feel like a lot of people want to almost communicate to him that it's not that deep.
Yeah.
This perception that people don't want to see him in grey roles or even dark roles, I think is only reflective of how the box office performance of that movie was, which was a terrible year. Vikram Vedha is the same year where nothing was working for Hindi cinema.
And it got tagged under the same remake.
Same remake, it was Hindi dubbed, it was available on YouTube. But I feel like, you know...
And he was the best thing about that film.
And for me personally, he's a star who I love as an actor. I love the creative choices he's made throughout his career. And I loved him for that rather than being the aspirational hero in every film, which I feel like sadly is becoming the slate that he's doing now, which is the Krishes and, you know, a Hombale big production. So I hope that the Hombale big production has something interesting for the particular character. But, you know, becoming restrictive, assuming that the audience doesn't want to see him in a variety of roles, I think is like crazy talk sometimes.
So mine was actually Varun.
Ooh.
I mean, we've seen a few films of these, and I was always a very big Varun fan. I loved his choices. I loved his... He seemed really excited about trying to challenge himself. He had that sort of entire phase, the Octobers of the world, which are just absolutely wonderful. And I've always been a fan. And for the last few films, I keep having to try and remember why I was a fan, because there have been so many films on paper. Like I was the most excited person you will ever find for Baby John in the world. It was last year, but Varun as the big masala hero made by, you know, hopefully a filmmaker who understands sort of that world of mass filmmaking, and that didn't work, which is fine, but he didn't work. And I thought that was so interesting because sort of the very idea of it is so exciting. Even this year, Sunny Sanskari, the in quotes safe wedding comedy, and the film was terrible, but even I didn't feel much for him. And I kept thinking of Ranveer and Rocky Rani and how he completely makes that his own. Obviously very different film, and so I keep having to remind myself, but I see him in a cameo in Tham and I'm enjoying that, and I was like that, and I'm a big fan of Bhedia as well. So I keep trying to remember why I was a Varun fan, and I'm just not seeing it in a while. So I don't know what the takeaway is. I'm not saying I wish he did more of this and less of this, but there's something that's just not as exciting. And I don't know why, because conceptually these are great. The idea of him being in these roles is so exciting. So I missed the Varun I was excited about, I guess. The star that won the year.
Ooh, the star that won the year.
I feel like there are no... it's actually pretty sad that there are no obvious
answers.
There
aren't any obvious answers, but you know, I feel like if you're equating it to a star, you're obviously looking at, I guess, an increase in popularity because of what happened this year. And even though I have my problems with that movie, I think it's going to be Vicky Kaushal's year.
Fair.
Because he's had the biggest hit of his career. He's the underdog I think a lot of people rooted for. And, you know, one thing that you cannot discount from all of his performances is his dedication to the characters. And I felt like while the pitch of that film and what it eventually turned into was slightly scary of the circumstances we're in this country, but I feel like he gives it his all for all of his movie, even if it's like you know, the rom-com that he did with Govinda Naam Mera, or even the one with Sara Ali Khan. I feel like has great versatility, and I feel like he's in the reckoning of being those top stars with a Ranveer.
Yeah, the ground shifted this year.
Ground shifted.
I think that's honestly that is the best answer. I completely agree. I had two sort of slightly offbeat ones. I had Ahan and Aneet for, at a time where we are all constantly talking about dissecting or being made to talk about what is stardom, what can a star do, our entire Hrithik conversation. You had a film which completely reminded you of the purity of it. It felt like we were back in the 90s as kids, where one film, a sensation.
You're seeing QSQT with Amir.
Yeah,
Or,
just the fanfare around it, and just the love of these performers from this film. We don't know much about them, and I don't know what the lessons are from a stardom perspective, but that whole idea of a star is born. And it felt so exciting after so long and so pure. That there was something nice about that. Like, the idea of stardom felt exciting again and not like baggage.
That movie is, again, in discourse, something that keeps on being brought up regarding Sayyara is that it finally felt like you were watching a young love story.
Yeah.
Even though Mohit Suri is in his 40s and he made this movie and he still stuck to his convictions of what is the generic cliche love story, you finally saw young people in a young romance versus, boomers trying to be early 20-year-olds.
And no, so the other answer I had for that, which was slightly offbeat, but I feel like Ishan. And again, star.
I had Ishan as well.
Yeah, I feel like, because obviously he's sort of younger, he's not as established in terms of your definition of star, but just if you look at the range this year, I thought he was the best part about the Royals. He knew exactly what that role needed to be, whether it's abs, whether it's charisma, whether it's such an unlikable character, but he knows how to turn it on. He knows exactly what that needs to be. And in the completely opposite end of the spectrum, you see Homebound. And that whole idea of sort of, and he's always been a talented actor, but to really show you what he can do. And for someone who can, it's exactly what you're saying, one for us, one for them, someone who can exist on that spectrum of a great talent, but if you really want me to just turn on the charm and be a star, I can very much do that. We will wrap it there, but I would just say, to close things off, I'm just wondering if there are any other gems from the year that we haven't discussed that you just feel like people really should.
I think one of the best experiences for me theatrically, even though I feel like people are slightly divisive about this movie, was Superboys of Maligaon.
Agreed.
I did feel like there was still wonder and abandonment of why we love the arts. There was still the core of that film. And I feel like that last frame of Shashank, just looking at others, really for especially people who are like, who every weekend don't know anything but to watch a movie, really felt like that kind of wonder and excitement is still alive. I felt this about Jugnuma as well this year. Really loved the theatrical experience. I was blown away by the opening sequence, wondering what movie I've tuned in for.
Did you just,
And Manoj Bajpayee is so amazing. Even Deepak Dobriyal is so good in that film. These were the two films that I really loved.
I mean, that is the other narrative that's well worth talking about, that this year this seems to have been this really exciting move towards indie films, Indian indie films, which are often the best films of the year, which very rarely find an audience or even get a release in India. Getting a theatrical release, we've seen so many of them, and across languages, and that's obviously Jugnama is one of them, and that gives you hope that hopefully it's here to stay. Mine was a bit of an offbeat one. It's a Hindi dub technically, so it's not a Hindi film, but I'm still going to shout about it, which is Vash Level 2.
Yep, loved it.
This is one of my favorite films of this year, of any language. It is a Gujarati film. I went for the screening and it was a Hindi dub, unfortunately, but still the experience of the film held intact. But I've never seen a film like it. I've never seen a horror film like it, let alone from India. It was so relentlessly, sort of just breathlessly intense, and I loved how it just kept doubling down. If you thought that was uncomfortable and insane, see what we do next. But not in a way that's looking too sensationalized. It didn't feel cheap. It does some very interesting things with gender, which I still think about. It's very unsettling, but also, some of those sequences, just the way they're framed. And from a craft perspective, from all of it, I was on the edge of my seat. And also, I'm not a big horror fan, but to make me so uncomfortable and yet so thrilled, it's not easy to do that.
From the word go, it was like bang, bang.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so exciting.
Yeah. I will shout about that film forever. Again, technically a Gujarati film, but yeah, that is.
I have one more.
Please.
It might be a wild card.
Yeah.
My theatrical experience of Badass Ravi Kumar was amazing.
Are we talking about the movie or the theatrical experience?
Yeah, the theatrical experience.
Okay.
So yeah, let's.
But why? But why was
it? But there was one point where Himesh Reshammiya kept on singing. Okay, and this is the latter half of the film. And I think he was 4 songs down. And then he started the fifth song, and everyone was looking around like, "Is this the what Anirudh calls, the folder,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is like, hey, I'm just going to use this one."
Whatever's left over.
Hilarious moments in the film, but
Yeah.
even as a spoof genre, it didn't come altogether. But it was quite a event,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
must say. Yeah.
But no, this was just really, really fun. And yeah, like it might not be the most exciting year for blockbuster cinema. There was still enough to keep us invested. And yes, we still have cautious optimism for 2026.
Always, always. Thank you so
Nice.
much, Suchin.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anmol Jamwal, and you can catch me on The Hot Take only on Hook.